Very good morning, students, and welcome to the digital classroom of General Science. Dear students, today we are going to start with a new lesson, lesson number 15, Sound. So let's start with the lesson. Students, there is a question at the beginning of the lesson, and the heading, can you recall how is sound produced? So can you just recollect studied in your lower classes that how is sound produced? Yes, the sound is generated from a vibrating object. If an object starts vibrating, the sound is produced. So in this lesson, we are going to study in detail how the sound is produced, how the sound is generated. Now, to study the generation of sound, we have to know the instrument which is called as tuning fork. You can see the picture of tuning fork on the screen. It is a U-shaped object having a stem or a handle. The upper two vertical parts are called as the prongs, and the lower single handle is called as the stem. So the tuning fork consists of two prongs and one stem. Now we will see how the sound can be produced with the tuning fork. We'll study in detail how the sound is generated, how the sound is produced, and that we will understand with the help of the tuning fork. So are you ready? Yes, students. So let's start the production of sound. Now, in the picture in front of your eyes, you can see three pictures. The first one, A, B, and C. Now we will study in detail what does these three pictures depict. Now, in the very first one, when the stem of the tuning fork is kept steady, is not moved, right? The air that is besides the prongs, that is set into periodic motion in forward and backward direction. You can see that the lines, they show the air. They show the columns of air. Now, when the tuning fork is steady, it's not moving, you can see that these columns of the air which are vertical, they are steady, they have uniform distance between the columns. Now, when we stuck these prongs on an object, these prongs, they start vibrating, as you can see in the picture B. Now, vibrating means they move from their original position. Students, do you remember oscillation and oscillatory movement in the lower classes? Yes. Oscillation, one oscillation means the thread, the ball is tied with a thread, and when it moves at its maximum to the left, then comes in the center, then goes to the right, and then again comes into the center, that is called as one oscillation. So that is also called as vibration. Now here, when we stuck the tuning fork on an object, these two prongs, or you can say the hands of the tuning fork, they start vibrating. That is, they start moving from their central place to left and to right. Now in the B, you can see that they are moving in the outward direction, and in C, you can see that they are moving in the inward direction. Now, because of these two outward and inward movement, the sound is produced. Now we'll see how the sound is produced with the help of these vertical columns. Now, as per the picture B, during the vibration, when the prongs of the tuning fork, they go away from each other, the air column that is outside the prongs is compressed. You can see that the columns have come nearer, right? So they are compressed, and when they are compressed, the pressure increases, right? Now, because of such high pressure, a region of high pressure is created because of the compression, right? Because the fork is applying pressure outward in the vertebral column of air. So these air columns are compressed, and due to the compression, the high pressure is created. Now this region of air column that is having high pressure, and at the same time it is having the high density also. So this column is called as compression. So the A, now compare the A part of air of A picture with the B part. You can see that the A column of B picture is very dense compared to the A region of the A picture, right? So this A part in B picture is called as the compression. Now they have gone outside, now they will come inside. So when these prongs, they come close to each other, in that place the air outside the prongs, it again becomes sparse, right? The space in between the columns increases, and thus the pressure decreases, right? Now as the pressure decreases in region A, this density also decreases, and this is called as rarefaction. So in the B picture, the A part is called as compression, and in C picture, A part is called as rarefaction. Rare means less. So the air columns are less when these prongs, they move inside, right? Now here in the A region, in the B picture, when the air molecules in the compression part, they have more energy. Now as the prongs, they move inside, this energy is transferred to the B part of the air column, right? And there the compression is created, as you can see in the C picture. Now in the A, when it was compression, B was rarefaction. But now A has become rarefaction, so the pressure has increased on B, and now B has become compression, right? So such a periodic motion of the prongs, it creates compression and rarefaction in the air, and thus the sound waves are created. So this rarefaction, compression, rarefaction, compression, these are nothing but the production of the sound waves. Now these sound waves, when they reach our ear, there is a membrane-like structure which is called as eardrum. So when these waves, they reach the eardrum, the membrane, that is the eardrum, starts vibrating, and because of this vibration we hear the sound. Okay, so this is how the production of sound takes place. Okay, so compression, where the pressure is high and the density is also high. Rarefaction, the air pressure is low and the density is also low. Sound waves, they are the periodic motion of compression and rarefaction in air propagated away from prongs. So this is how, with the compression and rarefaction, the sound waves are produced and the sound moves from one place to another. Now in our lower classes we had studied that sound travels through a medium. It can be a solid, it can be a liquid, or it can be a gas. But just think, if the medium does not exist, if there is no medium, then the sound will propagate from one place to another. Sound will move from one place to another or not. So let's have this experiment. Now you can see in the picture we have a big bell jar and it is connected to a vacuum pump. With the help of this vacuum pump, we can observe the air from inside the bell jar, and we have an electric bell inside the bell jar. Now this electric bell is connected to the power supply through the lid. As you can see, the wires of the electric bell are going out of the bell jar. They are connected to the power supply, from where we can start the electricity or switch it on and off. And at the base of the bell jar you can see there is a tube which is connected to the vacuum pump, with the help of which we can drain out the air inside and create vacuum. Now, when the vacuum pump is off and we on the switch, the electric bell starts ringing, and we can hear the ringing of the bell outside the bell jar. Now we have to switch on the vacuum pump, and because of this switching on the vacuum pump, the air inside the bell jar is removed, right? And thus the quantity of air inside the bell jar also decreases, and as the air is decreasing inside the bell jar, the sound of the bell is also becoming less, right? So why the sound is becoming less audible? Because the medium is becoming less because of the vacuum pump. So this demonstrates that sound generation and propagation needs a medium, and if the air is removed completely from inside the bell jar, then we will not be able to hear the ringing of the bell outside. Okay, so this experiment concludes that medium is necessary for the propagation of sound. Then next we are going to study about the frequency of sound waves. Now, just now we had seen that vibrations of the tuning fork of the prongs, they form compressions and rarefactions in the air, and thus the air density and pressure also increases and decreases. Okay, so in this picture you can see the cycles of compression and rarefaction and how the change in the air pressure takes place. Now, if we go to the picture on the screen, the very first part of the air column, you can see it is having high pressure and it is having high density, and it is the compression. Next to is the rarefaction. Then again compression, then again rarefaction, compression, rarefaction, right? Now, this one cycle of compression and rarefaction is called as sound wave. So such cycles are formed in the air in 1 second. they will decide the number of times the prongs of the tuning fork are going to vibrate. Right? That is the number of vibrations of the tuning fork in 1 second. Now, whatever cycles are produced in the air in 1 second is called as the frequency. Okay. Whatever number of this compression and rarefaction or one cycle are produced in 1 second is called as the frequency of the sound wave. And the unit of frequency is hertz. It is measured in hertz. So, if one cycle is completed in 1 second, right, that is, if one compression and one rarefaction is formed in 1 second, then the frequency of the sound wave will be 1 hertz. Okay? Or if 512 cycles or whatever number you can take of compression and rarefaction in the air are produced per second, then the frequency will be 512 hertz. Okay? Now students, looking at these instruments, what comes to your mind? Yes, it's music. Yes. So, as soon as music comes to our mind, we feel relaxed, and when we hear music, we really feel relaxed. Okay, now again back to our lesson. Sound and music. Now these are all the musical instruments, right? The first one is guitar, then the second one is sitar, the third one is violin, and the last one, which is horizontal, that is the flute. Now, the sound or the music which we hear from these musical instruments are different. Now, any guesses, students, why the music which is produced from these different instruments is different? Yes? I will tell you. Now, we had studied the frequency. Now, the frequency of these vibrations are different in different instruments. And they can be changed also. In all the instruments, there is an arrangement with the help of which the frequency of the sound produced can be changed. And that is done by changing the tension on the string or by changing the vibrating length of the string. Now you can see there are so many strings on the guitar, sitar, violin also, right? Now these wires, if you had seen anyone playing on these instruments, they move their fingers on these wires. Now when they move their fingers on these wires, the length of the wire changes, and thus the frequency of sound also changes, and thus we hear the different types of notes or the different types of musical sounds. So by changing the frequency of waves, the different types of sounds can be produced. Similarly, in flutes also, you might have observed that when a person plays the flute, he opens and closes the pores of the flute. Okay, why he does that? And as he does that, the music is different, right? Because the waves produced by closing and opening of these pores changes the frequency of the sound, and thus we are able to hear the different type of music. So this is how the music or the sound is created from these instruments. Next, a very important human being, how the sound is produced in human being, that we will study. Now you can see the internal structure of human. The food pipe and the trachea or the windpipe are one above each other in our throat region. And you can see the very first labeling is epiglottis, that is a flap or a cover like structure which closes the air tract when we are swallowing the food. Because just behind the windpipe is the food pipe or the esophagus, in which the food is passed from the mouth cavity. So when the mouth starts chewing the food and the mouth is slipping inside the esophagus, that time this windpipe or the trachea is closed with the help of this flap that is called as epiglottis. Okay, so that the food does not enter in the windpipe. Students, you might have observed that when you are eating your food and if you try to speak, you start coughing, right? And you feel suffocating. That is because when you are talking, the flap opens and the food passes into the windpipe and you start coughing, and because of the coughing that particle comes out. So you should never talk while eating the food. Now the vocal cords can be seen, right? These vocal cords are present in the trachea region. Now when we swallow the food, we can feel in the throat region the movement of the food. Now this is the part of the body which is called as larynx, and it is the just upper part of the windpipe, that is the entrance of the windpipe is called as the larynx. And here two vocal cords are stretched across the voice box or larynx in such a way that a very small narrow slit is present to pass the air. Larynx is also called as the voice box. Now when the air passes through these slits, the sound is produced because of the vibration of these vocal cords. And the muscles which are attached to the vocal cords, they become tight or they become loose because of the sound waves, and thus the type of quality of our voice becomes different. You can just perform an experiment. You have to take two rubber strips and then place these two pieces of rubber strips one above another and then blow air through these strips. Now as you blow the air through the gap, a sound is produced. Similarly, the sound is produced in human being with the help of the larynx or the voice box. Just to inform you, the vocal cords in our throat region are around 20 centimeter in male and 15 centimeter in female. And in children, they are much smaller than these. And that is the reason the voice of male, female and children are different, because the different frequency of sound is produced. Now, when we have a function in our society or in our area, we use loudspeakers. Any idea why the loudspeakers are used? Loudspeaker, right? Because the sound can be loud, right? Now we will study about the internal construction of a loudspeaker. As you can see in the picture, students, there are two magnets, permanent magnets, and in the center there is a coil and there is a screen. Next time when you see a loudspeaker, just go and stand in front of it and observe the screen which is there on the loudspeaker. It vibrates when the sound is produced. Now here the magnetic field is created due to the coil. This we had studied in the previous lessons, that a coil present in between the permanent magnet, and when the current flows through it, the magnetic field is created. Now here, as the coil moves, the screen of the loudspeaker, the outermost covering of the loudspeaker also moves back and forth, out and in. And as it moves out and in, the sound waves are produced. And thus, because of the production of the sound waves, the sound can be heard. Okay. So next time when you see any loudspeaker, you just go near to it and see very minutely. You will observe that the screen, it is a thin membrane, it moves, it vibrates, and it moves in and out. So next time, if there is any function in your society, at your place, please take care that the loudspeakers should not disturb others, because the sound is produced at a very high frequency with the help of a loudspeaker, which causes sound pollution, because of which the adverse effect is seen on the social health also. So we have to take care whenever a loudspeaker is being played, the sound or the intensity of the sound should be very low. So students, with this we finish with the lesson.